Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today was a very newsy day in the Bombay High Court. As we all know, before Justice Samre, the senior advocate Mukul Rohatgi, as well as senior advocate Amit Desai were arguing in the Aryan Khan case. As we all know, yesterday also, senior advocate Mukul Rohatgi argued for Aryan Khan, the son of superstar Shah Rukh Khan, in the Bombay High Court. Today, that hearing continued, but it had to be put off for yet another day because the arguments from the prosecution side, which is the Additional Solicitor General of India, arguing on behalf of the Narcotics Control Bureau, will happen tomorrow. So it's not, the bail order has not come yet. The order has also not been reserved. Tomorrow arguments will happen and we have to yet see and know if the bail order will be pronounced tomorrow. So it has been put off at least for another day. Tomorrow we'll know what happens. But what happened today in court? Why is it taking so much time in a bail matter? I mean, as we all know, Aryan Khan was arrested on the 2nd of October. Now it's 20 days plus. And does it normally take so much time in these kind of cases, which is the narcotic cases in which, contraband is found on an accused? Why this has happened? We have an eminent panel to discuss this with me. I have with me Senior Advocate Sanjeev Sen, who joins me first time on Legally Speaking. Welcome, Mr. Sen. Welcome to the Legally Speaking Club. Pleasure to have you on the show. I have with me Justice Iqbal Ahmed Ansari, sir, as the Chief Justice of Patna High Court. Welcome, sir. I have with me Advocate Mumtaz Bhalla, who joins me on the show. Welcome, Mumtaz, on the show. Let us start with an opening comment from Senior Advocate Sen. Could you share with us what kind of a day was it in court today, and why is it taking so much of time for a bail matter? Either ways, why it took so long, why there was no bail in the lower court, are judges reluctant to give bail in lower courts? What is this whole thing about?
You see, Tarun, there seems to be a misconception in the legal position, because in this case, it is so high profile and emotions are running high. There are pulls, pressures, there are a lot of allegations, counter allegations. But first, we must understand what the legal position is. Now, the Supreme Court, in a judgment which was passed last year in the case of Tufan Singh versus State of Tamil Nadu, just to give the viewers a background as to how the courts view this Narcotics Act. It is not an ordinary act. It is not an act under any other provision. It's not an economic offenses or any other offense. It's a Narcotics Act. Now, Supreme Court in Tufan Singh laid down as follows, and I read and quote, that there can be no doubt that the mandatory provisions of the NDPS Act to ensure fair trial of the accused must be enforced. Please note the following. However, overemphasis on the principles of natural justice in drug trafficking cases can be a major hindrance to the apprehension of offenders. In offenses under the NDPS Act, substantial compliance should be treated as sufficient for the procedural requirements, because such offenses adversely affects the entire society. The lives of thousands of people get ruined. Now, this is what the Supreme Court says, and because it is the Narcotics Act, it is a very serious matter. So it's not just an ordinary offense. Now, we are talking of bail. We are today only confined to the issue of bail. Now, bail, to understand why bail has been refused, what is going on behind the scenes in the courtrooms, actually, as far as the legal aspect is concerned, one has to understand Section 37 of the Act, the Narcotics Act. Now, 37 of the Narcotic Acts provides for a bail to be granted by the court. Now, what are the conditions which the court has to keep in mind in granting of bail? Firstly, one must remember Section 37 overrides the provisions of Code of Criminal Procedure, number one. Number two, the public prosecutor must be given a notice. It cannot be granted ex parte. Number three, if the public prosecutor opposes the application for bail and the court is satisfied that there are reasonable grounds for believing that he is not guilty or that he is not likely to commit any offense likely on bail, only then, only and only then can the court grant bail. Now, this is what most people seem to be forgetting, and the court's powers are very limited. It cannot grant bail in drug cases, and it can only grant bail only if these two conditions are satisfied. That is, one is the court is satisfied that there are reasonable grounds that he's not guilty or that he's not supposed to consume. Now, the power of the chief CMM court or the sessions court is limited by the provisions of the statute, in this case, the Narcotics Act. It cannot go beyond the provisions of the Act. See, people are making all kinds of arguments, allegations, counter-allegations, and talking of fundamental rights. Now, the question of fundamental rights, which is being argued by Mr. Rohatgi in the High Court, can only come into the picture in the High Court. It cannot fundamental rights cannot be enforced by a lower court like the CMM or the Sessions Court. It is bound by the provisions of the statute. As I said, the provisions of the statute is limited. The provisions are stringent. Supreme Court has passed several orders, but in the High Court, you can argue Article 21, right to life and liberty, etc., etc. So the scope of grant of bail expands as you go up. High Court has wide powers and the Supreme Court has even wider powers under Article 142 of the Constitution. So even if the statute provides a stringent condition, it can be overridden partly by the High Court and even more so by the Supreme Court. So therefore, it is like a sort of a funnel where the power of the court expands as you go up higher in the hierarchy. But as I said, the Metropolitan Magistrate and the Sessions Court is bound by the stringent provisions. The provisions normally oppose, it prohibits grant of bail except on two very limited circumstances. The first court and the second court found that under the facts of the case, these two conditions are not satisfied and therefore bail was not granted.
Okay. Senior Advocate Sen, thank you so much for explaining to the audience why bail in a lower court was tougher and why the High Court, being a constitutional court, in a sense, could examine this issue and the issue of liberty and then take a decision on the bail. I'll go to Advocate Mumtaz Bhalla. Mumtaz, how would you look at the proceedings yesterday and today? Was this matter destined to be in the High Court or would a bail in a lower court have been possible?
I would slightly like to differ with my learned senior Sanjeev sir, because in a very similar case of Bharti Singh, where they had the husband-wife duo of Bharti and Harsh had about 86 grams of contraband in their house, and they got a bail from ACMM within 1 day. So I think, to me, it appears to be NCB's way of seeking relevance through these high-profile arrests and high-profile custody. While I do respect the fact that the statute has these two conditions, but if a person does not have any contraband found on him, there's no consumption because there's no MLC done, there's no test done for to establish consumption. He's been in jail for almost 3 weeks now. What are the conditions of bail? Is bail an exception or is jail an exception? Bail is an exception. Whatever information had to be recovered from him could have been recovered in these 3 weeks. I don't see even the NCB contesting this fact that whatever information they had from him, they are trying to link chats which are a couple of years old, which Mr. Desai and Mr. Rohatgi argued that those chats or 2 years ago are not related to the cruise ship. So have they got anything on him regarding the cruise ship? He did not even have any drugs in his possession. So I think it's also reluctance by the judges in the lower court to make bold decisions because they want to stay away from the margin of error. And more often than not, the higher the name, the high profile the case, like Iffy Dextran's case, because Ria was involved in a case which arose out of a suicide of Sushant Singh Rajput, which was eventually a big sensational case subsequently. The bail came in much later. I feel the bigger the name involved, the more reluctance is shown by lower courts, and High Court, or at times even the High Court, is reluctant. But the Supreme Court steps in and enforces these fundamental rights and these rights to be on jail, because the right to be on bail. Because even when we argue as litigators before court, the first question put to us is, he will join investigation. He's a person with antecedents in the society. Why don't you have him join investigation? What is the discovery you need to make? So I don't know if it's anybody's case today that after 3 weeks they have to make some discovery of Aryan Khan. Whatever discovery had to be made, it has been made on the ship. There was nothing found on him. So it's high time that he should be granted bail. He will take part in the investigation. Not to forget, the kick comes in not because Aryan Khan is influential. The kick comes in because he's Shah Rukh Khan's son. Had he been an ordinary man, he would have gotten bail. NCB protested Bharti Singh's bail on the same ground. But what happened eventually when it went to the Sessions Court? They stopped appearing. Their officers were suspended. So I think it's their idea to seek relevance by keeping high-profile people under it rather than being a principle of rule of law. That's my view.
Very frankly explained by Mumtaz Bhalla. I'll go across to Justice Ansari. What would you make of what you're seeing for the past now close to 3 weeks? Was there reluctance on part of the lower court to give bail? And the arguments yesterday and today?
It's really interesting that even after such a long time, we are still considering whether Aryan Khan should or should not be allowed to go on bail. Mr. Sanjeev Sen has correctly pointed out the law, but to the facts of the case, he has not told us how these facts of the case are satisfied. Because there have to be reasonable ground of believing that the accused is not guilty. That does not mean that any case you throw on the court and the court will say, we have no way to go. Here in this particular case, admittedly, in the possession of the accused Aryan Khan, nothing was found. It was found with his friend, and there is not even an iota of material so far as I have been given to understand, which shows that Aryan Khan was aware of the fact or was conscious of the fact that his friend was carrying drugs. No, that is also not there. And there is no sale, no purchase. As soon as they arrived, they were taken into custody. This is what the facts of the case now emerging. It is not that it was searched, she was there, not like that. So what are we looking for really? In these particular circumstances, bail ought to have been granted because there is no reasonable ground for believing that the man has committed the crime. And secondly, true it is that Article 226 and 227 are not available to the subordinate courts, but the fundamental rights cannot be forgotten by the lower courts. There is no law that fundamental rights are only meant for the High Court and Supreme Court, and the lower court can flout fundamental right. That way, Article 20 can be flouted, Article 19 can be flouted, Article 14 can be flouted by the lower court, and they will say, no, we are not required to enforce. This is not the case. The fundamental rights enforced there, but it has to be respected by every court, however low it may be in the hierarchy of courts. That's what I feel.
Okay. Point well made. I'll take this to Senior Advocate Sanjeev Sen. Now, there was a lot of talk, Senior Advocate Sen, that the burden of proof is on the accused and that's why this delay. Could you pin it on the general reluctance of lower courts to give bail in high-profile matters, or because of the twin condition, because of PMLA? Those are the talks that other people have also made.
Now, here we are not concerned of the PMLA. We are only concerned about the Narcotics Act.
So it's not PMLA, but under the Narcotics Act also, yes, you have to satisfy.
You see, as I explained, Section 37, it is the other way around. The court has to be convinced that he is not guilty of such an offense. See, that is distinct and different from saying that they are satisfied prima facie that they are guilty of such offense. The two are distinct and different. That is why a case under CRPC has to be, or normally is treated as a different case as a case under Narcotics Act is concerned. Yes. And as I read that passage of Supreme Court also, the whole idea of the Narcotics Act is that the larger society should not be, the idea is that drugs is a very serious menace. Had this kind of, drugs accusations. Forget about possession. About I don't know. Frankly, I don't know the WhatsApp chat contents. But in case whatever is found, if it was found in, say, Saudi Arabia, UAE, or Singapore, it is visited with a death penalty. Any knowledge, or even a knowledge of drugs in the UAE or Singapore or Saudi Arabia visits you with a death penalty. Now we are, therefore, this is an act which is viewed upon much more seriously than normal offences. And all that I am saying is that the courts below are limited by the provisions of Section 37. They are not that much concerned about fundamental rights as about fulfillment of the twin conditions in Section 37, which is, one is they must be satisfied that there are reasonable grounds for believing that he's not guilty. That is different from what my Lord Justice Ansari said, that his court should be prima facie satisfied. That is one. And second is, he's not likely to commit any offense on bail. That's all. Now, the contents of the WhatsApp chat is not in my knowledge as to what exactly is there, what exactly he has communicated with these friends, etc., etc. Without going into those details, it will be difficult to explain and to explain the conspiracy really. But it appears that no possession has been found on his person, and that it was just his knowledge that his friend apparently was carrying drugs, and his conversations with other friends who were regularly in touch with drug dealers who were supplying drugs, which is apparently a part of an international drug racket.
Point well taken. Mumtaz, as in the PMLA Act and as in the Narcotics Control Bureau law, the burden of proof shifts on the accused. Does it make it harder to get bail? That is why we also saw in the case of son-in-law of Nawab Malik, he was behind bars for a long time, I think many months. But I think a contraband was then accused to have been found on him, which later was found out to be untrue. Do you think that the discretion is far and wide to the courts in such matters? So in some matters, some people get bail. In some matters, they languish behind the jail. Do you think it's a matter of pure discretion?
It is a matter of discretion, but 37 puts the burden of proof on the accused. Now, it's about the mental state of the accused. Intention, knowledge, motive, all the three things have to coexist. There has to be meeting of minds if we need to get in the conspiracy angle. If there is nothing found on the person, if there's no use, there's no consumption, there's no possession, if that is not enough to discharge the burden of proof of lack of mental state, what else is? NCB has relied on 29 as a conspiracy. Why the issue WhatsApp chats came in was because the mental state did not exist, because he neither had possession nor use nor consumption within the parameters of Section 37. But then they tried to bring in the WhatsApp chat saying that they had discussed something 2 years ago, which is why there's a conspiracy angle. For conspiracy, for an offense to exist, there has to be meeting of minds to do the same thing in the same time, to reach a common object. None of that are present in this. And if prima facie, the court can see that there's no use, there's no consumption, there's nothing to link me as Aryan Khan to any other person regarding the offense, I think that should be sufficient ground to grant bail. Nobody's acquitting him of the case. Let him take part in an investigation. It's a high-profile case. His father has a respectable position in the society. He's not going to jump bail and escape. What else do you need to satisfy the conditions of grant of bail? And what is the presupposition? If nothing has been found on him right now, what makes anyone say that he's going to commit another offense while he's out on bail? So I feel that the discretion is there. I feel that this is a fit case, but there's reluctance to exercise that discretion by court at this stage.
Okay.
They are just being extra cautious.
Point well taken. As Justice Ansari, as Mumtaz Bhalla advocate says that courts are extra cautious. Do you think this is a case of courts being extra cautious?
Acha. Mr. Sen has misunderstood what I said. I agree that the burden is on the accused, and unless the court is satisfied that the accused is not guilty, it cannot grant him bail. But the question is, when you bring the accused, you bring nothing. Do you want to say that still the burden will remain on him? So there has to be at least some material, because the prima facie evidence has to be there against the accused for the purpose of even applying the reverse burden. And that is what is missing in this particular case. And as Madam Mumtaz has correctly pointed out, and I think Mukul Rohatgi has argued at length this point, that conspiracy is something to do a particular act. There is a meeting of mind to do a particular act at a particular given time. Now here the time is today. Something was done 2 years ago. So where is the meeting of mind? That meeting of mind, I'm not saying that if the chats are 2 years ago, they are not relevant. What I'm saying is that when you are trying to rope in a particular accused with conspiracy, you must show that he was involved at that particular time and in what manner. This is what is missing here. So in all said and done, I will not say that he should be given bail, but well, he has a deserving right to be considered for bail.
Okay, point well taken. I think we'll close our discussion today with this point. Tomorrow we shall also watch what the court does in this matter. Of course, the ASG has to respond from the prosecution side. We'll see what points he puts forth. We still don't know whether the bail order, whatever it is, will come tomorrow or will it be reserved. We don't know that. So we will follow that issue. But I would like to thank Justice Ansari, Senior Advocate Sanjeev Sen, Advocate Mumtaz Bhalla. I appreciate your joining us. Thank you so much.
My hunch is that the order will be reserved.
Order will be reserved. So
because
thanks
there
for
are so many number of counsels and so many arguments taken, the judge will take some time to appreciate the arguments and, because as you correctly said, that the case is under such national scrutiny that every single line of the order will be dissected and carefully read by all and sundry. So therefore, I feel that the order will be reserved and it will take the judge we have to give some time to the judge probably to assimilate and, give a proper judgment in 2-3 days time maybe.
Point well taken. So we will see what happens tomorrow. But thanks for sharing this view with us so that we know what's going to happen in a sense. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tarun.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.